Hi everyone, this is Tim Cain at Obsidian Entertainment with another update on Project Eternity. We've decided to do something different on this update. We asked Reddit readers to ask questions in the Project Eternity Reddit group about the game and to vote these questions up and down. And on Friday, we took the top 5 scoring questions and we've decided to answer them today. So if you like this, let us know and maybe we'll do this in future updates. So let's get right into the questions. Atheist Bots asked, class versus classless systems. You're most famous for classless systems involved in Fallout and Arcanum. It sounds as if Obsidian will be using a class-based system. We are. What do you see as being the advantage of a class-based system that you're hoping to leverage in Project Eternity? The reason we're using a class system in Project Eternity is because we want the different party members in your group to have different combat roles. Specifically, since you're making just your main character and the remaining characters in your group are going to be companions that you recruit, you need to know when you recruit them exactly what they're going to be adding to the group. We could have done that with a skill-based system, but it would have been really hard knowing what you're going to get before you actually recruit the companion. And it's too easy to make hybrid classes or hybrid characters that won't add a particular set of combat skills that you need. With a class system, it's very easy to know when you're getting a priest or a thief or a fighter exactly what combat skills you're going to get. And it's easier for you to put together your group and deploy them in combat. So for that reason, we decided that it would make much more sense to have a class-based system than a skill-based system. Now, Atheist Bots did ask a bonus question, which is kind of cheating there. Are you considering multi-classing? Yes, we are. We are considering it. It's not our primary focus right now, but we're really going to look into it, and if it fits within the system, we're going to add it. The second question is from Kaboom, who asks, I was a bit discouraged when I heard that the combat was going to be real-time with pause, myself being a big fan of turn-based, and the possibility of tactical combat that it lends to a game. My question is then, how are you going to make the combat in Project Eternity tactically interesting despite it being real-time with pause? Now that's kind of a loaded question, because that kind of supposes that there are no interesting real-time combat systems and that all the interesting ones are turn-based. And I know I've played a lot of, especially real-time strategy games that have really good tactical combat. So the way we're going to do it in Project Eternity, the way we're going to make it interesting is because every class will have its own distinctive role and will have its own set of combat abilities that it brings to the fore. When you're actually playing the game, you will have to decide moment to moment where you want to stand and what abilities you're going to be using in that moment. And you have a wide choice of things to pick. It's going to be very tactically interesting. The other thing we're going to do in the combat encounters, though, is as we design our enemies, we're going to make them progressively more difficult. So that as you play the game, something that worked earlier may not continue to work throughout the game. You're going to have to mix it up tactically and use all the combat abilities that we're going to put in your class. It's one of the things that we think is a pillar of this game. And because it's an Infinity Engine-inspired game, we think those pillars are an isometric view of a world that you're going to be exploring, an interesting story that's full of believable, three-dimensional characters, and real-time combat with pause. So that's why that's going in the game. The third question is from Athosian, who asks, how much reactivity can we expect from the world based on our character's race and subrace? And the answer to that is a lot. We're actually designing racial traits, and you can pick from them. And those racial traits are going to affect things like dialogues. You'll get dialogue options that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten. They'll give you skill bonuses, both combat and non-combat skill bonuses. And we're going to design our quests so that there will be different ways of solving quests if you're a particular race. Now, we're not going to put in quests that are only available to a particular race, but there will be quests that can be solved a unique way if you happen to be playing an elf versus a human. We're also not going to put in items that are restricted to a particular race. So any item we put in the game, any race can use, even if it culturally belongs to a certain group. So even though it may be unusual to see a human wearing elven chain, if one of your human characters finds a good set of elven chainmail, he can put it on. So the fourth question comes from Neuroarcanist, and I really like that name. He asks, what aspect of CRPGs are missing from modern games that you most want to recapture with Project Eternity? And that's a simple one to answer. Big parties with full control. What I like playing about in a lot of RPGs is when I have an entire party of characters that I've put together and I get to control them. A lot of modern games either only let you control one person in the party, or they let you switch control from one person to the other, and as you do it, the other ones become AI controlled. One thing we're definitely going to allow in our game is a combat option to pause every time one member of your party has it's time for him to take his turn. He has new ability he can use, so that you can stop and decide exactly what that character wants to do. You're going to have full control over all those characters, and I think that will make for incredibly tactically interesting combat. The final question number 5, comes from Zinacel, who asks, will there be modding capabilities for this game? I know it's a tall order for this style of game, but I've wanted a definitive answer to this question. Knowing Unity, I know it's somewhat unlikely to offer, but I'd still like to know for sure. That's a tough one to answer. The best answer I can give you is we don't know yet. We're looking at Unity, seeing how it packs up content for delivery when we ship the game. And we're also using a lot of our own tools that we're making here at Obsidian. But we don't know what's going to be available for you to change and what isn't. We want you to be able to mod the game. We think that's great. We know there are people out there that are going to want to make their own content and want to play around and tinker around with the content that we provide. And we think that's great. If we can provide that, we're going to. But it's not our primary focus right now. This is probably a better question to ask about a year from now, when we have a lot of the game finished and we know exactly where we stand and what kind of content we've put in and what can be manipulated by players in the shipped version of the game. So there's our answers to the 5 questions. If you like this, let Steve Weatherly know on Reddit, and we will do another Q&A next week. Thank you very much.